Hi everyone, welcome to Love and Marriage with Seyi, where we celebrate thriving marriages and sow success seeds and wisdom nuggets for growth. Thank you so much for being with us today. You know, I've heard of 1,001 ways of meeting your spouse, but today's couple beats anything I could have ever imagined. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Eddie and Mrs. Connie McClendon. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. and Mrs. McClendon. We are delighted to have you here. Let's begin. How did you meet your spouse?
I met my spouse Interstate 7585 going downtown. I was going downtown to pick up my girlfriend, and on the way, this young lady here entered the expressway coming off of 166, and being a discourteous driver like I was that day, I didn't move over to allow her to enter. So she pulled around me from the rear and pulled up beside me, and that's when I noticed her. And I noticed she also had an antenna on the back of her car, which indicated she had a CD radio. And I picked up my microphone, and at the time I picked it up, she looked over to her right and saw that I had it in my hand, which indicated for her to pick up hers.
Which tells you that he's a flirt, right?
Which she did. And when she did that, I started my conversation. On the highway, I was in my car and she was in her car. And we started our conversation.
No, we didn't start our conversation. He said to me, I'm rushing downtown to get some medication. I've lost my voice almost, and I'm running downtown. I have this friend who's going to give me some penicillin. So I'm speeding. I'm trying to get downtown before he leaves his office. He's leaving town. And he says, "Where are you going so fast?" In that little Merc. He's into cars, so he saw my little Mercedes. And so I said, he had a nice voice. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even answered. So I said, because I had laryngitis. He said, "So you better slow down there, lady, or you're going to get some green stamps." And that's how we started our conversation. And so I did not know that he was trying to make a pass at me. I just thought that he was, just
so I gave her my telephone number over the phone, and I asked her if she was a truthful lady, and she said she was. And I said, "Promise me that you will call." And she said she would.
But weren't you going to pick up your girlfriend?
Yes, he was. But
yes.
What he said, this is what he said. He says, "Look, where are you from?" I said, "No." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm here in the city." I said, "Where?" He says, "Well, I'm from the North Carolina." So he had a nice little sense of humor. And that's one of the things immediately that he was witty. And I like that because I do like people who are lighthearted and witty and kind of light. So that was why. So I continued to come. So someone interrupted and says, look, you get off the channel and talk someplace else. So he told me go to another channel on the CB. This was CB days. So I did. And that's when he got into well, what do you do? I said, I don't do anything. I'm a working woman and all I do is work all the time. He said, well, you need to lighten up, And that was, so all of that little conversation. And then after we had all of that little conversation, that was between 166 and the stadium. All that little conversation went on between 166 and the stadium. And so that's when I had my daily word, because I had really planned to go. I was going to Unity Village in Missouri for that religious retreat. That's where I was planning to go. It was Easter holiday coming up. And so I had my little daily word in my book beside me. So he said, well, listen, that's when he was telling the truth about asking me about if I were a truthful person. And I said, yeah. He says, well, listen, will you promise to call me? He said, are you in a relationship? I told him I was already in a relationship. He says, well, look, do you have I said, I'm open for a platonic relationship. So he said, okay then. I said, because I don't really like short men and I see that you're short. So we had that conversation, which was really just lighthearted and airy, just like that. And so he gave me his telephone. I wrote his number down. He asked me for my phone number. That's what he did. He asked me for my phone number. And I said, I'm not giving my phone number out on the CB radio. He says, well, will you take my number and promise you'll call me? That's how that went. He said, will you take my number and promise you'll call me?
And I wasn't home when she called.
So you met on the highway.
On the highway.
On the expressway.
Over 4 decades later, man and wife.
Right. Wow. Four months later, we were married.
4 months later, you were married?
Yeah, 4 months later, August 15th.
That was in April. We got married August 15th.
Now, given that you both were in separate relationships, how did you know that this was the real thing?
Well, what happened was, really, my guy had gone to Florida to see his children. And what happened with me, with him, he was supposed to call me, and he didn't get in touch with me. And when he got back, and I said, well, look, you know what happened? I thought you were going to... He says, well, look, that's just the way that I am.
Oh.
And I said, well, really, I don't like that. I'm saying, you said you were going to call. I didn't hear from you whole week. Not that it mattered but I didn't like the fact that he didn't call. And so he says, well, listen, if you don't, and this was a very wise thing, and this is for someone to think about. I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that it was nonchalant on his part to just kind of brush it and say, well, look, which is the truth. If you don't like it, then do something different. And so I said, well, hey, I don't really like the fact that you didn't get in touch with me while you were gone. And so he says, well, I'm just like that, so I guess I'm like that. So I said to myself, this is not what I want. So I decided to break that relationship off. But then he was a big flirt, and he was flirting with me. So I don't know.
Well, I broke off my relationship with my girlfriend by giving her a shopping spree, a departure shopping spree.
So your guy taking you out on a shopping spree may be a sign of something terrible coming.
It could be.
Could be.
It wouldn't be
Could
on my
be.
part because
Could be. You better be careful when you go out on a shopping spree. It might be the end of the relationship.
Oh wow! So how would you define love?
I say that love is really a feeling and an experience. If we're talking about romantic love, it is something that you kind of grow into after having had certain kinds of feelings and experiences. You kind of grow into it. Or if you encounter that, you can immediately feel like, oh, this is good. And it can lead to a more lasting relationship. I do feel that real love, and I think it takes a minute, it does have to do with compatibility. And I think the more compatible and the more you enjoy the person, the more likely that you'll eventually, after 42 years, he's like a family member as well as the husband. I mean,
Oh,
there
yeah.
is a responsibility and a commitment that you really don't necessarily have on the front end of a marriage. I mean, I'm more committed. There's nothing that at this point in my marriage that he could do that I would say I don't care about him, but the relationship we've had over the years.
So love grows.
Yeah, it does.
Well, love kind of remind me of the Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That you accept from your spouse at all times, and you love it. You accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you love it.
And you don't love it.
And
you don't like it even. But
it keeps
but
you.
Take it.
Yeah,
if
you have that commitment and that,
and you have that commitment, and so and plus it's the feeling, the same thing she says, and it's the closeness that a person. Love kind of brings you close. You feel close to a person. To me, I feel real close to my wife. As far as, her feelings. I like to be near her. It makes me feel good to be close to her. And I like to touch her and stuff like that. That's my love.
And so thinking about the young folks out there, my college students, my young adults, 21 and above, at what point should they imagine or should they think that this is a good relationship that could go somewhere, that they might be in love? What would you say to such?
Well,
I'd say get someone that you can respect and that respects you. And I'm saying respect, you wouldn't, if you can't tolerate someone getting drunk and being loud and boisterous and beating you and hitting on you, don't get into that kind of relationship.
No.
If you can't stand someone who is overly friendly and who like to hang with the guys and don't like to hang with you, just because he spends some time with you, don't get into that relationship, because even though you may stay, you won't be happy. It's not fulfilling. And so I would say look for someone that there's a certain degree of compatibility. First of all, you do some things that you like, both like, you find out something about the person. You enjoy being with them first, because that's one of the attractions. You see them, you like them, you enjoy being in their presence, their conversation. Then if you spend some time together, you know that, hey, all right, this is someone, I kind of like some of the things that he does or she does. And then also, I can tolerate, I think you should spend enough time to, and even though we were together for 4 months, we did have quite a bit of interaction. And the interaction we had, it was a kind of interaction that let you know something about that person. So I'm saying, just kind of know enough things. Think about whether this is someone that they're going to do things that you'll be able to tolerate if you're with them. I think there's a total recipe for a good marriage. I think there's some ingredients. There are some ingredients that you should consider if you're wise. And I think that in some cases, that'll work for you. But I don't ever think that there's a total, if you follow this recipe, it's going to be okay. I think they come there before, because I think you can tell if a person respects you, even if you don't want to accept that they don't.
Well, it's during the courtship.
Yeah, right. That's
during the courtship.
During the courtship, however brief, there's one thing that people say. I think if you get a guy and he has a mother, see how he treats his mother. If he treats his mother badly, I don't think that's a good sign. If you see a man who's kind and who's gentle and who's and to even other women, you look at how men treat other women. Look at how he treats women generally. If a man is very nonchalant and flighty about women, he doesn't show you the kind of. Some women like to hop out of the car and go for themselves. you don't have a man who's going to kind of look out for you or treat you. Some people say that's chauvinistic, or some people say that's, I don't need that. Well, maybe you don't, but you would like to think that he cares about you. And there are certain kinds of behavior that indicates care. And I think that most people want some care. Some need more and some need less. But I would like to have someone who cares about me, and I think that they care about me and love me. I need that. And if you don't need that, you might do better than I would with someone who doesn't care.
Thank you, ma'am. And Sarah, what would you say?
Well, like I said, love and respect. You know, it deals with the young man as far as his conversation and his promises. You know, during the courtship, you make several promises, you know, to an individual, and it's the way you keep them, and it's the way she accepts them. You know, if you tell a girl that you're gonna be there at a certain time and you never show up, no respect. If you are, like she said, if you have no idea as to putting out chairs for her to sit down, or opening doors for her to get in, or just being polite. If you have to cough or have to excuse yourself, you know, just the things that you say that let her know that you are aware of her presence. And by being aware of her presence, you're going to always be respectful with your presence. So,
you're not going to have a lot of wondering eyes either. You're going to get up and leave the table, leave her sitting there.
You can't help the audience. The audience around you is can be disturbing, which make you look off sometimes. But you can't just continue to stare and look at all the other sides. Mm-hmm. But you know, just being the gentleman at the time, I think when you're out with your lady, you should be on your best behavior. I mean, you should act to impress. They said dress to impress. I think you should act to impress. Okay. You know what I mean? And that's the way I've always done. I've acted to impress. That's the reason why I was so popular.
He's a gentleman.
Yeah.
He really is. But there are certain things that, to me, it's not depending on the individual. There are certain things that, to me, shows disrespect.
Oh, yeah.
And there are certain things that shows I don't care for you. I don't care about you. If I'm out here trying to roll up the canvas, we're going on a picnic, and I'm out here, if I say I got it, that's okay. But if you just walk on away and, hey, for me, unless you know me and know I'm a tomboy and don't need help, then that's something that you would do even if you were with a guy, to me, or whatever. So that's the kind of thing I'm saying, that sometimes people show you that you're really not very important to them. You're really not the prime. You're not on their mind.
How do you keep your relationship growing?
I think activities keeps it going, you know, a variety of activities. My wife is interested in everything that can be purchased. And by being that way,
that is not true.
We are out everywhere. I think during the 42 years we've been married, we have bought a little bit of everything. And I think that makes her happy. And as a result, I like it.
In essence, he's saying there was a compatibility in our personalities.
Yeah.
Now, there's a compatibility there because one of the things for couples who are going to consider getting together or staying together even, have a common interest that you both share and can both enjoy together, because togetherness is very important, and doing lots of things together is important because it helps to bind you. When we vacation, we love vacationing. We both love collecting, and so that's thrift store, antiquing. It's been thrift store, antiquing, pawn shopping, flea marketing.
Vacation.
All of that goes together. So it's and when you choose someone where you have that compatibility, then you have that, it grows you together because you have these things that you do together, and those are things that you remember. Those are the things that kind of keep you together because you've enjoyed this and you enjoyed that. And as you remain in that marriage and stay in that marriage, it's a good thing to continue to do those. And as you, however, everything must change. And as life, when your house gets filled with stuff that you've gotten,
yeah,
because then you've got to find something else so that will keep you enjoying each other and remembering. However, life changes. If you have children, some people do, some people don't. If you have children, then you've got that, and that's another aspect of life that can make things change because responsibilities shift. And so whereas you were great and fine before you had kids, once you start having kids and your wife has to be, or whomever, has to be, spend less time with you and more time with the kids, it's very important that you think about that, because when you can spend that time together, parenting even, that's important if you can. And if you can't, then what you do, you make room for, you make that adjustment and you consider your partner.
Yeah.
And that's why it's
know what your partner is like.
And it's very important to
like.
think about in staying together in a marriage, and that's what I like to say.
Yeah.
In order to stay together in a marriage, you must be considerate of that other person. And that's listening to what they have to say and understanding. Because sometimes when you're different and your backgrounds are different and the way you think about things is different, that's why communication is another very important aspect. Because if you don't communicate, now you may, I never thought of that. Oh, I'm sorry, if I had known that made a difference. That's why it's always good not to go off and be upset, but to communicate your feelings. Because when you communicate your feelings, then that lets your partner know if you want to make a difference, you make a difference. Don't always think that your way or what you think. Understand that another person has another perspective and let them share that, because that helps too. If you're talking about maintaining your marriage and holding on to your love and feeling loved by your partner, that's very important.
What is one thing that would tell a young lady that a young man is into her, or that would tell a young man that this young lady is into him?
Body language, way he acts. You know, I got a picture of me, and I look at that picture, and I'm standing beside my lady, and my feet, toes are curled up. They're curled up.
What does that mean?
That means it's just, I'm so thrilled to be there, and I'm just feeling so good that my toes are curled up. Body language, you know, the way a person acts, the way he responds to her, the way he wants to.
I think that's a good answer. I think for a simple answer, that's a very good answer. Because a lot of times the way you conduct yourself or the way you act around a person says a lot. Yeah. You can look and see guys who are with women, and you can kind of just tell from that. If you're just looking from if you're out someplace, you can kind of see that. I hadn't really thought of that. I never really, but I think that's an excellent way to think of it, because the way there's a tenderness that you might show, or there's a nonchalantness you might show that tells you, I see people who, they're kind of disinterested. You see guys who are into themselves and they're not interested into you, and you can see a guy like that. You can see how the guy behaves. I mean, and if you're a girl, I would say
you can feel it too.
Look at how
you can feel body language.
Think about how that guy behaves or responds to you or treats you or even looks at you or make comments to you.
Yeah.
Because my husband, one thing, he tells me all the time that he loves me. Well, telling someone you love them means nothing really. I mean, it means something, but not necessarily. But I
like the way she dressed. When she dressed, there are clothes that she wears that I just like. The day she had on the beach, I said, I like that jacket. You look so something. I said, but the way the jacket fits around her, everything, and the way it flares around. And there's a couple of little jackets she wears that I really enjoy. seeing her with the
But he's really a very romantic and observant guy because he likes the girls. But then for girls, you've got to understand if you've got a guy like that, then you should explain to him that there's certain kinds of behaviors that are not acceptable. Now, for me, and if you are insecure, if you're an insecure woman, or I won't even just say insecure, because I can be flirty myself. So therefore, with that, you can understand.
You sure can.
Yes, to continue on the process of jealousy or flirtiness or this kind of thing in a relationship, each person cannot do the same thing. When we talk about different people, but even talk about in a marriage. In a marriage, he cannot tolerate me flirting. That's not a good thing for him. I can allow for him to be flirty, and sometimes I'll help him out. He sends all the girls Valentine's candy and stuff like that, friends, and calls them all up on the. He even does. I'm surprised you didn't get a call because he does that, but it's okay because I know him and I know he just loves being nice and making people feel good. It's not a relationship. If it were, it would not be acceptable. So you understand that and it's okay. But now if you can't, then that shouldn't happen. For me, that's okay. And that's kind of rare. But the other thing I'll say too, if you understand, you need to understand that. And if you need to have an understanding, if that's not acceptable, then you need to take, as a woman, I think you need to tell your partner, this makes me feel insecure, or you shouldn't do that. And he's done some little things that were unacceptable. And I've had to pull his chain, if you might want to say that. So, and you just kind of have to say, me? Yes, you. Well, and sometimes it doesn't matter. We were out one night, and we were out in this crowd with Blues Blind Willies. And so the girl came over, this little girl came over, she was a college student over at Georgia Tech, and she came over swinging her. And she saw Eddie was doing what was it? What was the song? What was the song?
I don't recall.
That the girl was singing. Oh.
I don't recall.
But anyway, she saw Eddie cutting up and going on, so she said, oh, I like the way he's cutting up to herself. So she came over and asked him, could I dance with you? I said, yes, go around on out there and cut up, And so they went, and one record passed, and the next, and he continued to dance. And so I said, I just went out and I said, I told you could have one dance. I didn't say spend the night. So, but he was having a good time, and he was just getting off on the fact that he was entertaining the whole, everybody was looking at him, and he was just doing his thing. So, but if that's not acceptable to your partner, I don't think that a girl nor a guy, I think you should respect your partner, and especially when you're out with them, and even when you're not, there are certain things that married girls or married men should not do. But if you're a big cut up, he's a cut up, so go for yourself as long as it's nothing.
It's all
that's fun. Yeah, it's all in fun and just it's nothing. Like I told him, don't. You can entertain, but don't take the phone numbers.
Yeah, right.
But everybody. But anyway, that's something to think about because that can cause problems for guys and there are girls who will, who make passes and I don't. If you make a pass, I say, well, hey, and he'll tell the girl he looks nice. You look beautiful. He'll do that. Well, she does. So it's okay. Because, I like that he appreciates. I said, well, look, I like that. I said, you certainly do. I like that he appreciates women. He appreciates beautiful women. So that's fine. But sometimes that is not okay. And for certain people, that's not okay. So therefore, that's why I say there's no one recipe. So you have to know, and if you love and care, then there are certain things that that you should or should not do.
Please share a wisdom nugget for the young folks out there.
When you get into a marriage, you should realize that there are going to be situations that are not going to be comfortable. You learn and you grow. And what you have to make that determination on the front end. Never go into the marriage with, hey, if that doesn't work. Always go into it. If you really want it to work and you feel that your partner loves you, feel like, hey, we can work this out. Let's work this out. Don't go in, well, hey, you did that, so hey, I'm going to do this, or you did that, so that's the end of the line. So if you go in with the determination, we are not going to get a divorce, we're going to stay in here, then when you have a problem, you say, okay, we've got to come together and work this out. Rather than, okay, now marriages end all the time, and they probably will continue to, but I think if you go in with the idea that we're going to really figure out how, let's figure out, and when you run into an encounter, if you mention that even, just say, well, hey, listen, you know we're going to stay together, so let's figure out how we can do that. Don't throw in the towel.
I think also for the man, don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, darling, I didn't mean it. It came out the wrong way. You know me, and I did not mean it. Don't be too afraid to apologize. Man up and say, hey, darling, I'm sorry. Apology is one of the salvations of marriage. It really saves a lot of marriage. Apologies and saying I'm sorry.
Don't do too much assuming. That's why I say communication. Sometimes talk about what would you like. Recognize the differences in people and the differences in where we came from and how we think, and be willing to listen to the person.
Keep love alive.
Keep love alive.
Keep love alive. Don't let it die.
That is awesome. Keep love alive, don't let it die.
Don't
One
let it
strategy,
die.
just one word. One strategy to keep love alive. One word.
Forgive.
Forgiveness. And you know what? I like to say good morning, and I like to speak to my wife every day. I like to say, good morning, how you feeling? Every day. It's just something that I just want to know. Hey, darling, how you feeling today? How you doing? How was you? She woke up this morning. She said, I have a headache. Let me see what happened this morning. She said, I have a headache. She said, would you mind going and get me Excedrin? And under her breath, she said, I also need something to eat. And so I jumped up, went into the kitchen, found the Excedrin, fixed 2 crackers and peanut butter crackers in a napkin with water, and brought it back to the bed for her. And she ate it and everything. So, you gotta accept one another. You gotta know how they're feeling. You gotta make sure that you're taking care of them. You don't know how your wife feels if you don't ask her. So, good morning, darling. How do you feel?
Any parting words for each other before you leave?
No, Uncle has been a great husband and a great father. He really is, and that's very important. So I just have to give him a 5 stars, because he's a loving guy, and he loves his children, and he loves to show love. So that's great.
The other day I was talking to her, and I said, Connie, you know what? You're the greatest. You're so great. You know what? Of all the descriptive words there are in the dictionary, I don't think there's one I can find to describe you. You're just so wonderful. And that's the way she is. She's a beautiful, wonderful wife.
If this thing happens anywhere, it could happen anywhere. The important thing is, do you see things that you like in the person? Do you think the person cares about you? Do you feel like the person respects you? These are important things to look for and experience even before you move forward into a marriage relationship. And for those of us in marriages already, it's important that we keep showing that we care for the other person. It's important that we keep the experience growing. And it's important that we just keep forgiving and growing in love. And so the word for this episode is keep growing in love. And may the love of God surround us all and be with us all. Until I see you again next month and beyond, the good Lord bless and keep us all.